The emergency lights in the Galactic Council chamber bathed everything in a pale blue glow. Representative Zixthar stood at the center platform, their 6 limbs trembling with barely contained rage. Around them, delegates from 47 species watched in silence as holographic images floated in the air. Faces. Hundreds of faces, all missing. They board the human ships, Zixthar said, their translator converting the clicks and whistles into standard galactic common. They pay their credits. They wave goodbye to their families. And then they vanish. The holographic display shifted to show passenger manifests from dozens of human vessels, names highlighted in red, boarding confirmed, arrival never recorded. The pattern was undeniable. A delegate from the Quellan Protectorate raised a tentacle. Perhaps they simply chose new destinations? Humans are known for their flexible routing. Zixthar's compound eyes fixed on the speaker. Not one has sent a message home. Not one has accessed their banking accounts. Not one has appeared on any planetary customs record anywhere in known space. They paused, letting the weight of those words settle. In 3 standard cycles, 4,732 passengers have disappeared aboard human vessels. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. 4,000 was not a large number by galactic standards, but it was enough. Enough to form a pattern. Enough to demand answers. The massive doors at the chamber's end slid open. Ambassador Chen walked in, her steps unhurried, her expression calm. She wore the simple gray uniform of the Terran Concordat, and she looked utterly unbothered by the accusations hanging in the air. Ambassador Chen, the council chairman said, his 3 voices harmonizing in formal address. You have been summoned to answer serious charges against your government and your merchant fleet. Chen smiled. It was not a warm smile. I've reviewed the accusations. They're quite thorough. Then you don't deny that passengers board your ships and never arrive at their destinations? I deny nothing that's true, Chen said simply. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in 17 different languages, their translators creating a cacophony of outrage. Zixthar felt their breath sacs constrict. The human had essentially confessed. The chairman called for order, his voices booming over the chaos. Ambassador Chen, are you stating for the record that the Terran Concordat is responsible for these disappearances? I'm stating that your investigation has been accurate, Chen replied. She folded her hands behind her back, looking completely at ease despite facing the combined judgment of galactic civilization. Passengers board our ships. They do not return. This is correct. Zixthar's sibling had been among the missing. Vixthar had boarded a human freighter called the Endurance 6 months ago, seeking cheap passage to the Outer Rim territories. The last message Zixthar received had been cheerful, excited even. Then silence. Where are they? Zixthar demanded, stepping forward. What have you done with them? Chen's eyes met theirs. For a moment, something flickered in that gaze. Was it pity? Amusement? They're exactly where they want to be, Representative. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give. The chairman's central head tilted forward. Ambassador, the council demands a full investigation. We will be sending observers to board your vessels and trace these disappearances to their source. Of course, Chen said, inclining her head. We've always welcomed passengers of all species. Observers will be no different. Zixthar felt a chill run through their exoskeleton. The human was too calm, too willing. This wasn't the response of someone caught in a crime. This was the response of someone who had been expecting this moment. I volunteer, Zixthar said suddenly. I will board a human ship and discover the truth. The chairman's outer heads turned to regard them. Representative, this may be dangerous. We don't know what happened to the others. Exactly, Zixthar said, which is why I must go. My sibling is among the missing. I will find them, and I will find the truth. Chen's smile widened slightly. The Endurance is scheduled to depart from Kepler Station in 2 cycles. I'm sure Captain Okoye would be delighted to have you aboard. The same ship Vixthar had boarded. Zixthar felt their confidence waver for just a moment, but they pushed the feeling down. They were an investigator, trained in the finest academies of the Vrelian Combine. They had solved murder cases, smuggling rings, and corruption scandals that reached the highest levels of government. They would not be intimidated by a human and her mysterious freighter. I accept, Zixthar said. The council session continued for another hour, establishing protocols and safety measures. Zixthar would carry a quantum-encrypted transmitter that could punch through any jamming. They would report daily. If 3 days passed without contact, the council would send a military response. As the session ended and delegates filed out, Chen approached Zixthar. Up close, the human seemed smaller, more fragile. Humans were young to the galactic stage, barely 200 years spacefaring, and yet their merchant marine was the largest in known space, their ships present in every major port and countless minor ones. A word of advice, Chen said quietly. Keep an open mind, Representative. Things are rarely what they seem. Is that a threat? It's a kindness, Chen replied. The truth can be shocking, especially when it challenges everything you believe about how the galaxy should work. Before Zixthar could respond, the human turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing in the now empty chamber. 2 cycles later, Zixthar stood at the airlock of the Endurance. The ship was larger than expected, sleek and well-maintained. Through the viewport, they could see crew members moving about, all human, all wearing the same relaxed expressions. Captain Okoye met them at the airlock. She was tall for a human, with dark skin and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. Welcome aboard, Representative. Your cabin is ready. The interior of the ship was surprisingly pleasant. Clean corridors, good lighting, the hum of well-tuned engines. Nothing sinister, nothing obviously wrong. But as Zixthar followed the captain through the ship, they noticed something that made their breath sacs tighten with fear. Every passenger cabin they passed had a door with a magnetic lock, and the control panel was on the outside. The doors locked from the outside. Zixthar's hand moved to the concealed transmitter under their travel cloak, fingers ready to trigger an emergency signal. Something wrong? Okoye asked, noticing the hesitation. The doors, Zixthar said carefully. Okoye glanced at the nearest cabin door and laughed. Oh, that. Safety feature. In case of decompression, we can seal individual sections from the bridge. Saved lives more than once. It was a reasonable explanation. A perfectly logical explanation. So why did Zixthar feel like they'd just walked into a trap? The airlock sealed behind them with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The Endurance's engines hummed to life. And somewhere in the ship's depths, Zixthar could have sworn they heard laughter. The first day aboard the Endurance was disturbingly normal. Zixthar explored the passenger areas, taking careful mental notes of everything. The dining hall served food for 17 different biological types. The recreation area had entertainment systems compatible with dozens of neural configurations. The humans had clearly put thought into making their ships welcoming. That was what made it all so unsettling. A crew member named Rodriguez brought Zixthar a tray of nutrient gel specifically formulated for Vrelian biology. Thought you might be hungry, he said with an easy smile. First time on a human ship? Yes, Zixthar replied cautiously. Well, if you need anything, just ask. We're all here to help. Rodriguez gestured around the dining hall. Make friends with the other passengers. Long journey ahead. Zixthar watched him go, then studied the other passengers. A Quellan family sat in one corner, their tentacles intertwined as they ate. A pair of Draxi engineers argued good-naturedly over a game board. A solo hiver hummed contentedly while reading on a datapad. Everyone seemed relaxed. Happy even this was wrong. These people should be terrified. They were on a ship where thousands before them had vanished. Instead, they acted like they were on a vacation cruise. Over the next few days, Zixthar attempted to access restricted areas of the ship. Each time, a crew member would politely but firmly redirect them. Sorry, engineering is off limits for safety reasons. The cargo bays are pressurized differently. Captain's orders, I'm afraid. The excuses were reasonable, but they formed a pattern. Zixthar was being kept away from something. At night, lying in their cabin, Zixthar heard sounds through the bulkheads. Music, laughter. Once, the unmistakable noise of power tools and construction. What were they building on a passenger ship in the middle of deep space? On the 5th day, Zixthar befriended a Quellan named Vorp. The elderly alien had been aboard for 3 weeks, far longer than a normal passenger journey should take. Where are we going? Zixthar asked over breakfast. Vorp's tentacles rippled in what might have been a smile. Somewhere wonderful. Could you be more specific? You'll see when we arrive. Everyone does, Zixthar pressed harder. But what's the destination called? What system? Vorp's expression became dreamy, distant. Does it matter? We're going somewhere better than where we left. It was the same response Zixthar got from every long-term passenger. Vague, content, evasive. As if they'd all been coached to say the same things, or as if they'd all been drugged into compliance. Zixthar managed to access the ship's public navigation console. The destination wasn't listed on any official star charts. According to the database, they were heading into empty space, a region marked as unsurveyed. That night, Zixthar tried to send a message through their quantum transmitter. The device activated, the encryption protocols engaged, but the message wouldn't send. Some kind of interference. The crew claimed it was natural, something about the ship's dark matter drive creating electromagnetic noise. Another reasonable explanation that felt like a lie. On the 8th day, Zixthar finally found a cargo bay door left unsecured. They slipped inside, mandibles clicking nervously. The cargo bay was enormous, stretching back into shadows, and it was packed with equipment. Agricultural machines, atmospheric processors, prefabricated building materials, water purification systems, power generators, medical equipment designed for multiple species. This wasn't cargo for trading. This was cargo for colonization. Impressive, isn't it? Zixthar spun around. Captain Okoye stood in the doorway, arms crossed, but her expression wasn't angry. If anything, she looked pleased. What is all this? Zixthar demanded. Supplies, Okoye said simply. For people starting new lives. You're establishing illegal colonies. We're helping people find better lives. There's a difference. Zixthar's mind raced. Unauthorized colonization was a serious crime in galactic law. Worlds had to be surveyed, claimed through the Council, and developed under strict oversight. The process took decades and cost fortunes. The Council will shut you down. The Council, Okoye said, her voice hardening slightly, has made colonization impossible for ordinary people. Do you know how many habitable worlds sit empty while billions live in overcrowded slums? Do you know how much it costs to get a colonial charter? How many bribes you have to pay? How many years you wait in line while corporate interests get priority? The law exists for good reasons. The law exists to keep power concentrated in the hands of those who already have it. Okoye stepped into the cargo bay, her footsteps echoing. How long did you wait for your council appointment, Representative? How many favors did you call in? How much did your family sacrifice to get you into the Investigators Academy? Zixthar said nothing. The answer was years, many years. We found something, Okoye continued. Something the council would have seized and sold to the highest bidder. Something they would have turned into profit for themselves while ordinary people got nothing. So we made a different choice. What did you find? Okoye smiled. Come with me. It's time for the talk anyway. Every passenger gets it eventually. They walked through the ship to the bridge. The command deck was smaller than Zixthar expected, with only 3 human crew members on duty. Through the main viewport, stars streamed past in the distorted colors of faster-than-light travel. We're dropping out of FTL in 10 minutes, Okoye said. I wanted you to see this directly. Words don't do it justice. See what? Why passengers don't return. The minutes crawled past. Zixthar's breath sacs worked overtime, flooding their system with oxygen. This was it. Whatever the humans had done, whatever crime they'd committed, it would be revealed in moments. The ship shuddered. The colors outside the viewport snapped back to normal starlight. And there, directly ahead, was a planet. Zixthar had seen thousands of worlds in their career. Rocky balls of minerals, gas giants with crushing gravity, ice worlds locked in eternal winter, dead moons and barren asteroids. This was none of those things. This world was perfect. Blue oceans caught the light of a stable yellow sun. White clouds swirled over green continents. Polar ice caps gleamed at the top and bottom. Sensors confirmed what Zixthar's eyes already knew. Breathable atmosphere, tolerable gravity, abundant water, rich soil, stable climate, a garden world. Untouched, pristine, waiting. By the ancestors, Zixthar whispered. Welcome to New Harmony, Okoye said softly. Population 4.7 million and counting. All voluntary. As Zixthar watched in stunned silence, the ship moved into orbit. And there, circling the planet like a protective net, were hundreds of ships. All human vessels. All passenger carriers. On the planet's surface, city lights twinkled on the night side. Agricultural patterns marked the day side in neat geometric shapes. This wasn't a new colony. This was an established civilization. How long? Zixthar asked. 43 years since the first landing. We've been running passenger ships here for 31. 4 million people, hidden from the council, hidden from everyone. Not everyone, Okoye corrected. Every person down there chose to come. Every person down there knows the truth. And every person down there will tell you the same thing. She turned to face Zixthar directly. They'll tell you this is home. And they'll tell you they're never leaving. Zixthar looked back at the planet, their mind reeling. Thousands of passengers disappeared. Not kidnapped. Not murdered. Simply gone to a place so perfect they had no reason to ever go back. Your sibling is down there, Okoye said gently. Zixthar runs a restaurant in the southern continent's main settlement. Award-winning, apparently. Fusion cuisine mixing Vrelian and Draxi cooking techniques. Would you like to go see them? Zixthar's legs felt weak. They gripped the console for support. Or, Okoye continued, you can activate your transmitter right now. Tell the council what you found. And watch as they send corporate fleets to strip mine this paradise, or military forces to claim it, or bureaucrats to regulate it into oblivion. That's not fair, Zixthar said weakly. No, Okoye agreed. It's not. But that's the choice. That's always the choice. Your duty to a system that doesn't serve its people, or your loyalty to the people themselves. The planet turned slowly below them, beautiful and impossible and completely illegal. Zixthar's hand moved to the transmitter and stopped. The shuttle descended through wispy clouds, and Zixthar pressed against the viewport like a hatchling seeing their first sunrise. Below, the city of New Harmony spread across a river delta, its buildings a chaotic mix of architectural styles from dozens of species. Vrelian spiral towers stood next to Draxi cube structures. Quellan water gardens flowed between human skyscrapers. Hyver domes clustered in the hillsides. It was beautiful and wrong and completely illegal. Captain Okoye sat across from them, patient and silent. She'd made her offer. Now she waited for Zixthar to process what they were seeing. How many know? Zixthar finally asked. How many humans are part of this conspiracy? Every human in our merchant marine, Okoye replied. About 400,000, plus another 6 million in the colonies themselves. 6 million. New Harmony is our first colony. We have 7 more now. All hidden, all thriving. Zixthar's breath sac stuttered. 8 colonies. Millions of people. This wasn't just a crime. This was a shadow empire. The shuttle landed in a public square. As the doors opened, Zixthar stepped out into alien sunlight and breathed air that tasted of flowers and fresh rain. Around them, crowds moved through the square. Vrelians, Quellan, Draxi, Hyver, and a dozen other species, all mixed together, all going about their business like this was normal. Zixthar, the voice made Zixthar spin. Through the crowd came a familiar 6-limbed figure, mandibles spread wide in joy. Vixthar. Zixthar breathed. Their sibling crashed into them, all 6 limbs wrapping tight in an embrace. You came. I knew you would. I sent messages, but they said communications were restricted and I couldn't explain without you seeing it yourself and… Oh, Zix. Wait until you taste what I've been cooking. Words tumbled out in rapid-fire clicks and whistles. Vixthar was alive. Healthy. Happy in a way Zixthar had never seen before. You disappeared, Zixthar said, pulling back to look at them properly. 6 months without a word. The family thought you were dead. Vixthar's joy faltered. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell everyone, but the rules are strict. You can't talk about the colonies until you've been invited or found them yourself. It protects us from what? From the council. From corporations. From anyone who would take this away from us. Okoye cleared her throat. I'll leave you two alone. Zixthar, you have free run of the city. Talk to anyone. See everything. I'll be at the administrative center when you're ready. She walked away, leaving the siblings standing in the afternoon sun. Vixthar's restaurant was exactly as described. A sprawling establishment near the waterfront with tables set for multiple species. The menu offered Vrelian protein gels alongside Draxi mineral soups, human vegetables next to Hyver fungal dishes. Over a meal that was genuinely delicious, Vixthar told their story. They'd been working in overcrowded factories on their homeworld, barely making enough to survive. The ticket on a human ship had been cheap enough to afford. They'd been promised work opportunities in the Outer Rim. I thought it was a scam, Vixthar admitted. But I was desperate. What did I have to lose? The journey had been long. Weeks aboard the Endurance with other confused passengers. Then the reveal. The choice. Stay and build something new or go back to the life you'd left. I stayed. Vixthar said simply. The humans gave me land, gave me startup capital for the restaurant. All I had to do was work hard and contribute to the community. They gave you land, just like that? There's a whole planet here, Zix, billions of hectares. More than enough for everyone. Why hoard it? Over the next 3 days, Zixthar interviewed dozens of colonists. The stories were all similar. Desperate people from overcrowded worlds, refugees from wars, families fleeing persecution, workers trapped in dead-end jobs with no future. A Quellan elder explained how they'd escaped a dying colony station where the air recyclers were failing and the council kept delaying relief shipments. A Draxi couple described fleeing a military dictatorship. A young Hiver spoke of wanting to study art, but being forced into mandatory factory work by their planetary government. All of them had found passage on human ships. All of them had been offered a choice. All of them had stayed. But the screening, a Draxi told Zixthar over tea in a public garden, they don't let everyone stay. I watched them turn away a Quellan, who had violent crime convictions. And there was a human corporate executive who they rejected immediately. What happened to those who were rejected? They got dropped at the next normal port. With their memories of the location scrambled using some kind of neural technology, they remember a pleasant journey but can't remember where they went. Zixthar found evidence of this too. Medical records showing neural dampening procedures. Legal documents explaining the consent process. Even rejected passengers agreed to the memory modification, because the alternative was being stranded at a remote station with no return ticket. It was sophisticated, carefully planned, and completely outside every galactic law. On the 4th day, Zixthar met Ambassador Chen. The woman who had seemed so calm in the council chamber now stood in a simple office overlooking the city, no longer representing the Terran Concordat but something else entirely. Welcome to the revolution, Chen said without preamble. This is madness. You can't hide 8 colonies forever. We don't plan to hide them forever, but we needed time to build something strong enough to survive when the secret came out. Chen gestured to the window. 1 million people here means the council can't just erase us. 8 colonies, 6 million total means we have strength in numbers. The council will send fleets. Maybe. Or maybe they'll negotiate. Maybe they'll realize that their system is broken and this is the solution. Chen turned to face Zixthar directly. Do you know why humans are good at this? Why we're the ones who started these colonies. Why? Because we remember what it's like to be trapped. For thousands of years, humans were stuck on one world, fighting over scraps of land and resources. We know what overcrowding does to a civilization. We know what happens when the powerful hoard everything and leave nothing for ordinary people. She paused. The galaxy is infinite, Representative. There are millions of habitable worlds. The Council's bureaucracy is the only thing standing between suffering people and empty paradise. The law exists for order. The law exists to maintain power structures, Chen countered. Your council is made up of representatives from established worlds. Wealthy worlds. Worlds that got their position early and now want to keep everyone else in their place. How many colonies has the council approved in the last century? Zixthar knew the answer. 12. 12 colonies in 100 years, Chen continued, while billions live in slums, while refugees die in overcrowded stations, while people like your sibling waste their potential because they were born in the wrong place. She leaned forward. We're not breaking galactic law, Representative. We're ignoring it. There's a difference. That night, Zixthar walked the city streets alone. They watched families eating dinner together, saw children of multiple species playing in parks, observed artists creating, builders constructing, teachers educating. This wasn't a prison. This wasn't a slave camp. This was a functioning society, but it was built on a lie, a massive conspiracy that involved millions of people. Zixthar's hand kept drifting to the transmitter. One signal and the council would know everything. One message and this would all be over. But then what? Corporate mining fleets stripping these worlds bare? Military occupation? Forced relocation of millions? The destruction of something beautiful because it didn't follow proper procedures? On the 5th day, Zixthar met the other council investigators, 13 of them from 9 different species. All had been sent to investigate the disappearances. All had found New Harmony or one of the other colonies. All had faced the same choice. We formed a network, a Draxi investigator explained. We feed the council false leads, keep them looking in the wrong directions, buy time for the colonies to grow stronger. You betrayed your oaths. We upheld the spirit of our oaths, the Draxi replied. We serve justice. And there's no justice in destroying this to protect a corrupt system. They offered Zixthar a place in their network, help select which refugees to save next, guide the screening process, protect the colonies from discovery, or go back to the council and watch everything burn. Zixthar had 48 hours to decide. On the morning of the 7th day, news arrived from the council. Human passenger ships had been declared hostile vessels. Military interdiction was being prepared. If Zixthar didn't report back with intelligence, warships would come instead of investigators. The deadline had moved up. Zixthar had to choose now. They stood in the administrative center with Okoye, Chen, and Vixthar. The transmitter felt heavy in their hand. I'll help you, Zixthar said finally, but not by staying silent. Chen's expression hardened. Representative, it's time the galaxy knew the truth, Zixthar interrupted. All of it. And I know exactly how to make them listen. Chen stared at Zixthar like they'd grown an extra pair of limbs. You want to tell everyone? That's suicide for the colonies. No, Zixthar said, their mandibles clicking with certainty. Silence is suicide. The council is already mobilizing fleets. Investigators like me will keep coming. Eventually someone will talk or you'll make a mistake. The secret will come out badly in pieces in a way that makes you look guilty. They gestured at the window overlooking the city. But if you control the narrative, if you show the galaxy the truth all at once, you change the conversation. Okoye frowned. Explain. The council keeps colonization locked down because most citizens don't question it. They assume the rules exist for good reasons. They trust the system. Zixthar pulled up a holographic display showing population density maps. But look at this. 3 billion Quellan living in orbital stations designed for 1 billion. Draxi worlds where people live 12 to a room. Hyver colonies where mandatory work assignments strip away all personal freedom. We know this, Chen said impatiently, but most people don't think about it. They accept suffering as normal, as inevitable. Zixthar's eyes gleamed. Show them an alternative. Show them happy colonists living in paradise. Show them that empty worlds exist and the only thing stopping them is bureaucracy. You won't face council fleets. You'll face a revolution. Vixthar clicked their mandibles excitedly. Make them angry at the council instead of you. Exactly. The council's power comes from perceived legitimacy. Break that perception and everything changes. Chen and Okoye exchanged glances. Some silent communication passed between them. It's risky, Okoye said slowly. Once we broadcast, there's no taking it back. You're out of safe options, Zixthar replied. This is the least bad choice. Chen was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. We'll need production equipment. Interviews with colonists. Footage of the cities. Data on population and resources. And it needs to be compelling enough to go viral across thousands of worlds simultaneously. I know people, one of the hidden investigators said. A Heaver named Zixthar hadn't met before. Media professionals who came here. We can make this work. Over the next week, New Harmony transformed into a production center. Colonists lined up to share their stories. Camera crews captured city life. Data analysts compiled statistics. Human technical experts worked on a transmission method that could punch through council, censorship systems, and reach every major communications network simultaneously. Zixthar conducted the interviews personally. They spoke with a Quellan grandmother who had watched her grandchildren starve on an overcrowded station. A Draxi engineer who had been blacklisted for speaking against his government. A human family who had lived in a slum for 3 generations with no hope of improvement. And they recorded the colonists' current lives. Spacious homes, productive farms, schools teaching children of multiple species, hospitals with enough resources for everyone. Communities working together, building something new. The contrast was devastating. This will destroy the council's credibility, Vixthar said, reviewing the footage. People will demand answers. Some will demand we be shut down, Zixthar corrected. The powerful won't give up their control easily. Then we make sure the broadcast reaches everyone. Not just the council. Every world. Every station. Every ship in transit. The technical team worked around the clock. They created a transmission package that would bootstrap itself across communications networks, making it nearly impossible to stop or censor. It would hit news services, entertainment channels, social networks, and personal message systems all at once. On the day of the broadcast, Zixthar stood in a studio overlooking New Harmony. Behind them, the city gleamed in afternoon sunlight. They wore their formal investigators' robes, every marking of rank and authority clearly visible. "Ready?" the human director asked. Zixthar nodded. The recording began. "My name is Representative Zixthar of the Varelian Combine. I was sent by the Galactic Council to investigate the disappearance of thousands of passengers aboard human vessels. I am making this broadcast to report my findings to every citizen of every world simultaneously, because what I discovered is too important to be filtered through official channels." Zixthar gestured behind them. "This is New Harmony, an unauthorized colony world hidden from the Council for 43 years. It is home to 4.7 million people from 32 species. They live in peace, prosperity, and freedom, and they came here because human ships offered them passage to a better life." The footage rolled. Interviews with colonists, shots of thriving cities, statistics on resource abundance and population capacity, comparisons with overcrowded homeworlds. "The passengers did not disappear," Zixthar continued. "They chose not to return, because the life they found here is better than anything the existing galactic system could offer them." More footage. A Draxi describing the colony's democratic governance. A Quellan showing their farm that fed hundreds. A Hiver explaining the educational opportunities denied to them on their homeworld, but available here. "There are 7 more colony worlds like this one," Zixthar said. "All hidden, all thriving, all home to people who were failed by the system that claims to represent them." Now came the hard part. The accusation. The Galactic Council controls access to empty worlds through a bureaucracy that serves the wealthy and powerful. In the last century, 12 colonies were approved. 12. While billions live in overcrowded slums, while refugees die waiting for resettlement, while families watch their children suffer because they can't access the abundant empty worlds that exist throughout the galaxy. Zixthar's voice hardened. The humans discovered these worlds and chose to share them with those in need, regardless of wealth or political connection. They broke the law, but in doing so, they served justice. The footage showed children playing in parks, families eating together, communities celebrating festivals that blended traditions from multiple species. I was sent to investigate a crime. Instead, I found millions of people living better lives than they ever could under council governance. I found a system that works where the official system fails. I found hope where the galaxy offers only despair. Zixthar stepped closer to the camera. "Citizens of the galaxy, ask yourselves this question. If paradise exists and stands empty, who has the right to deny you access? Your answer to that question will determine the future of galactic civilization." The broadcast ended with a simple message. The truth cannot be contained. Choose wisely. The transmission launched at 800 Galactic Standard Time. Within minutes, it had propagated across the communications network. Within an hour, it was playing on view screens on thousands of worlds. Within a day, it was the only thing anyone talked about. The council chamber erupted into chaos within hours of the broadcast. Delegates shouted accusations. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for the council chairman's resignation. Many just sat in stunned silence, watching the footage play on repeat. On Quellan Station colonies, protests began within hours. 3 billion people living in overcrowded conditions watched footage of spacious homes on New Harmony and demanded to know why they couldn't have the same. On Draxi worlds, underground movements that had been advocating for reform suddenly had proof that alternatives existed. Governments that had dismissed them as dreamers now faced populations demanding action. Hiver colonies saw mandatory workforces refuse assignments. If freedom was possible elsewhere, why accept slavery at home? Core worlds watched as their poorest citizens rioted in the streets, demanding colonization rights. The comfortable classes tried to dismiss the broadcast as propaganda, but the footage was too real, too detailed, too compelling. Human space remained calm. Most humans already knew about the colonies or had guessed. For them, the broadcast was vindication. In the council chamber, a Quellan delegate stood and made a formal declaration. "My government recognizes the autonomous colonies and demands the council reform colonization law immediately." A Draxi delegate followed. We stand with the colonies. The system is broken. Fix it or we leave the council. One by one, smaller governments broke ranks. They couldn't stop the wave. Their populations were watching. Their citizens were demanding answers. The old order was crumbling in real time. The chairman called for votes on emergency measures, military intervention, sanctions, arrest warrants for the colony leadership. Every measure failed. Too many delegates faced revolt at home if they supported crushing the colonies. On the third day after the broadcast, a council military fleet did launch toward New Harmony. 12 warships under the command of Admiral Torgath, a hardliner who believed the council's authority had to be maintained at any cost. In orbit around New Harmony, human ships moved into defensive positions. They were cargo haulers and passenger vessels, not warships, but they carried millions of people who had nowhere else to go. Captain Okoye stood on the bridge of the Endurance watching the council fleet approach. Around her, colonists had volunteered to serve as crew. Draxi engineers, Quellan navigators, Hyver communications specialists, all working together. "We can't win a fight," her first officer said quietly. "We don't have to win," Okoye replied. "We just have to make them choose." The council fleet entered the system. On every ship, crew members had watched the broadcast. They knew what they'd been ordered to attack. Admiral Torgath opened a channel. "All vessels in orbit around the unauthorized colony will stand down and prepare for boarding." Okoye responded calmly. "Admiral, there are 4.7 million people on the planet below. They're not soldiers or criminals. They're families. They're your people. Quellan, Draxi, Hyver, and dozens of other species. Are you really going to fire on them to enforce an unjust law?" Silence on the channel. Then a voice from the planet's surface. Colonists broadcasting to the council fleet. Thousands of voices speaking in dozens of languages. "We are not hostages. We are home." Admiral Torgath stood on the bridge of the council warship Unity, watching the view screen as thousands of messages poured in from the planet below. Quellan children holding handmade signs. Draxi families standing in front of their homes. Hyver communities gathered in public squares, all broadcasting the same message in different ways. "We are not hostages. We are home." His communications officer looked up nervously. "Admiral, the crew is requesting permission to speak with you." "Denied. We have our orders." "Sir, with respect, the crew representatives are insisting." Torgath turned to see half his bridge crew standing at attention, their expressions determined. His first officer, a Quellan who had served with him for 15 years, stepped forward. "Admiral, my cousin is down there. She sent me a message. She's happy. She has a farm and 3 children and a life she could never have afforded in the stations." The first officer's tentacles trembled. "I can't fire on her. I won't." Around the bridge, crew members nodded. Similar stories, similar connections. The colonists weren't strangers. They were family, friends, people from the same overcrowded worlds that had driven them to join the military in the first place. Torgath looked at the tactical display. 12 warships against hundreds of civilian vessels. His fleet could win, but the cost would be measured in millions of lives. "Stand down," he said quietly. The weapons officer blinked in surprise. "Sir?" "I said stand down. Cancel attack protocols." Torgath opened a channel to the other council ships. "All vessels, this is Admiral Torgath. We will not engage. I repeat, we will not engage." On half the ships in his fleet, relief was palpable. On the other half, hardline commanders argued furiously over secure channels. But Torgath had made the call, and his reputation carried weight. "This isn't over," he told Captain Okoye over an open channel. "The council won't let this go." "I know," Okoye replied, "but you just gave us time. Thank you, Admiral." The council fleet withdrew to the edge of the system, not retreating, but not attacking either. A standoff. Back on the council station, chaos reigned. The broadcast had been playing for 5 days now. Riots on 17 major worlds. 4 planetary governments had collapsed. 12 more were teetering on the edge. The old order was fracturing. The chairman called an emergency session. Every delegate was required to attend physically. No remote participation. The chamber filled with representatives, many looking exhausted and frightened. We face the greatest crisis in Council history. The chairman began. Our authority is being challenged. Our laws are being ignored. We must present a united front. A Draxi delegate stood. The laws are being ignored because they're unjust. My world is on fire right now, literally. Buildings are burning because people watch that broadcast and realize they've been lied to for generations. The human colonies are illegal, a corporate representative insisted. We must shut them down and punish those responsible. With what? A Quellan delegate shot back. The fleet won't attack. Half our member worlds are threatening to leave the Council. We have no enforcement capability. Then we negotiate, another voice called out. The chamber fell silent. Negotiate with criminals? With rebels? The idea was unthinkable, but also inevitable. Zixthar watched the council session via secure transmission from New Harmony. They'd been declared a traitor by some delegates, a hero by others. Arrest warrants had been issued, then rescinded, then issued again. Legal chaos. Chen sat beside them, her expression unreadable. They're going to try to negotiate a surrender. Offer us legal recognition in exchange for stopping the colonies. Will you accept? No. Because we're not stopping. There are 23 more colony ships in transit right now, heading to surveyed worlds we've kept secret. By the time the Council agrees on anything, we'll have 15 colonies, maybe 20. Zixthar clicked their mandibles nervously. You're escalating. We're expanding. There's a difference. Chen leaned back in her chair. The Council thinks this is about these 8 colonies. It's not. It's about changing the entire system. We won't stop until every species has the right to colonize freely. Over the next month, the situation evolved rapidly. 3 more Council fleets were dispatched to colony locations, none engaged. 2 fleet commanders defected with their entire crews, requesting asylum in the colonies. The 3rd returned to Council space and publicly resigned. On the Council station, a constitutional convention was called, the first in 400 years. Delegates from every member world gathered to debate fundamental changes to galactic law. The Colonization Reform Act was drafted over 6 weeks of intense negotiation. It was a compromise that satisfied no one completely, but offered enough to everyone to prevent total collapse. Key provisions. Any group of 1,000 or more citizens could petition for colonization rights. Wait times reduced from decades to months. Corporate monopolies on world development were broken. Colony worlds would have autonomous governance with minimal council oversight. In exchange, existing colonies would be recognized legally. Human ships would operate under council inspection. Memory modification of rejected passengers would stop, replaced with non-disclosure agreements. Zixthar addressed the council one final time before the vote. They wore their investigator robes but stood in the human delegation area, making their allegiance clear. Representatives, you have a choice. Vote for reform and preserve the council's relevance. Vote against reform and watch as more worlds leave, more fleets defect, and more colonists flee to places where they can breathe free. They paused. The humans didn't destroy the council. They exposed its failures. What you do with that exposure determines whether this institution survives. The vote was close. 73% in favor, 27% against. Enough to pass. The Galactic Colonization Reform Act became law 3 months after Zixthar's broadcast. Within a week, applications for colonization rights exceeded 10 million. Within a month, 50 million. The floodgates had opened. Human ships continued their passenger runs, now operating legally. But they weren't alone anymore. Quellan colony transports launched. Draxi settlement ships, Hyver expansion fleets. Species that had been trapped by the old system now rushed to stake claims in the vast empty galaxy. Some council delegates warned of chaos, of uncontrolled expansion, of the risks of too much freedom. They were ignored. The people had seen the alternative and there was no going back. 6 months after the Reform Act passed, Zixthar stood in the same spot where they'd first seen New Harmony through the Endurance's viewport. But now they stood on different ship, heading to a different world. Captain Okoye entered the observation deck. Dropping out of FTL in 5 minutes. Ready to see Colony Omega? The terraforming is complete. Finished last week. Atmosphere is breathable, water is flowing, first settlements are under construction. Okoye smiled. This one's special. We're partnering with the Vrelian government. Official colony, proper legal foundation, the whole thing. Zixthar felt their breath sacs flutter with something like pride. My people are colonizing? Your people learned from what happened. They voted out the old guard and elected reformers. Now they're leading the expansion effort. Okoye checked her data pad. 4,000 passengers on this trip. 73 species represented, all with legal colonization papers, all chasing the dream. The ship shuddered as it dropped out of FTL. Through the viewport, a world appeared, not as perfect as New Harmony, still rough around the edges from terraforming, but alive, waiting, ready. Zixthar thought about the journey that had brought them here. Sent to investigate disappearances, finding instead a revolution, choosing to broadcast the truth and watching the galaxy transform. The terrifying reason human ships don't return passengers. Zixthar said softly, repeating the words that had started everything. Okoye raised an eyebrow. Still terrifying? No, Zixthar admitted. Terrifying was the wrong word. The truth is much simpler. What's that? Zixthar watched as the ship moved into orbit, as shuttlecraft began loading passengers eager to start their new lives. They thought of Vixthar happily cooking in their restaurant. Of the millions who had found homes in the colonies, of the billions more who would follow now that the gates were open. Humans showed us we deserve better than what we had. They gave us passage to places where we could build the lives we wanted, instead of accepting the lives we were given. And once you see that possibility, once you experience that freedom— Zixthar paused, mandibles clicking in what humans had learned to recognize as a smile. Once you see that, you can never unsee it. The passengers don't return because they've found something worth staying for. Not because they're prisoners, but because they're finally free. Okoye nodded slowly. That's what scared the council. Not that we were kidnapping people, but that we were offering something better than the system could provide. Proof that their way wasn't the only way. And now the galaxy gets to find out what happens when ordinary people can chase their dreams without asking permission. Okoye gestured at the planet below. Could be chaos. Could be disaster. Could be the greatest expansion of civilization in galactic history. Which do you think it will be? Honestly? All three. But mostly the last one. Okoye started toward the door, then paused. You're staying, aren't you? On Omega? Zixthar had thought about it extensively. The council had offered their position back. Their family wanted them to return. The comfortable known life waited. I'm staying, Zixthar confirmed. I'm going to help build something new here. Something better. Good. We need people like you, people who understand both worlds, who can bridge the gap between the old system and the new. As Okoye left, Zixthar remained at the viewport. Below, the first shuttles were landing. Passengers were stepping out onto alien soil for the first time. Some would fail. Some would give up and go home. But most would stay, would build, would create communities that mixed species and cultures in ways the galaxy had never seen. The human ships would keep flying, now joined by vessels from every species, all carrying passengers to new worlds, all offering passage to better lives, and none of them would return those passengers. Not because they couldn't, but because they wouldn't want to. Zixthar's communicator chimed. A message from Vixthar on New Harmony, asking when they'd visit. Another from their mother, finally understanding and proud. A third from Ambassador Chen, now serving as the coordinator for all autonomous colonies, inviting Zixthar to the next planning session. The galaxy was changing, growing, expanding into the infinite space that had always been there, waiting for people brave enough to claim it. Humans had started the movement. But now it belonged to everyone. Zixthar looked at the planet below, at the future being built with every landing, every foundation laid, every seed planted in alien soil. This was why the passengers never returned. Not terror, not imprisonment, not death, simply hope, and hope once found was impossible to abandon. The ship hummed around them, already preparing for the next journey. More passengers waiting, more worlds to settle, more dreams to chase. The terrifying reason had become the inspiring truth, and the galaxy would never be the same.